N-5 independent and dependent events. I can find the probability of independent and dependent.
Okay, so first of all, we didn't really spend a lot of time, thank you, Ryan, talking about compound events. But compound events would be more than one event, right? Two separate occurrences. So independent events and dependent events, in order for them to be dependent or independent, have to happen at least twice, right? There have to be at least two things going on. So for independent events, think of Ainsley and Paxton flipping coins. One was flipping a coin in one spot, one was flipping a coin in the other spot. They really did not impact each other. For dependent events, think of me putting those markers in the bucket. I drew one out, and I kept it out, and then I drew another one out. Did my second draw depend on what happened with my first draw?
Yes.
Did my second draw depend on what happened with my first draw?
Yes.
Yeah, if I drew one out and didn't put it back, I definitely had a dependent event there. So those are your vocab words. Independent events. The really big thing you need to realize is there's a formula. To calculate dependent or independent events, you figure out what the probability of A is, and you multiply it by the probability of B. So if I'm flipping a coin, and I want to figure out how often I will get two heads in a row, you figure out what's the probability of flipping a head on the first flip. What's the probability of flipping a head on the first flip? You guys.
1/2.
So what's the probability of flipping a head on my first flip? 1/2. What's the probability of flipping a head on my second flip?
1/2.
1/2. It's 1/2 and 1/2 because the first flip doesn't affect the second flip, does it?
Yeah.
So 1/4, right? If you drew a picture out of all the possibilities of flipping a coin twice, you would draw out a picture of a head, a tail, a tail and a tail, and a tail and a head. And you say, oh, that happened 1 every 4 times of me getting a head and a head. Yes, no?
Yeah.
So 2 options that the cheat sheet idea says. Use probability of A times the probability of B, or draw a picture. Okay? B, our number 3, independent events. And there's lots of examples there for you to see. Independent events, formula. The probability of A and B would be the probability of A times the probability of B after A takes place. So I put 3 markers in the jar, red, blue, and green. What's the probability I'm going to pick a red and then a blue? What's the probability I'll pick a red? 1/3. What's the probability I'm going to pick a blue?
1/2.
1/2. The reason it's 1/2 is because I've already picked one out of my first draw. I only have 2 left in there, right?
Yeah.
So this is a dependent event because the second event depends on what happens in the first event. Yes, no? And then we give you an example down below of putting letters in a box, like math rules, and drawing out consonants, vowels, and so on. You need to know the formulas for dependent and independent events. Questions?